I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Mish Shedlock, editor of Mish's Global Economic Trend Analysis on MishTalk.com. Welcome back to the show, Mish.
Pleasure to be on the show. Lots of things going on here. Trump has started the ball rolling here in a lot of different directions, taking pot shots at the EU, at Mexico, if I'm not mistaken, Canada, but certainly Mexico and the EU.
Who is going to pay for the wall that he says he's definitely going to build along the Mexican border?
Well, apparently he is going to build this damn thing, but U.S. consumers are going to pay for it, at least from the latest approach that we've seen. They said they're going to do this by putting a 20% tax on products coming from Mexico. I'm quite positive this is in violation of, well, first off, it's in violation of NAFTA, but he can cancel that. But then it will be in violation of WTO trade rules. But I think it's pretty clear he simply doesn't care. It does take as long as 3 years or even more just to bring a suit up to the World Trade Organization, WTO. And then, after they hear it and decide and issue their ruling, is he going to follow it? Well, I guess we'll see when we get to that point.
Well, who will have to pay for the construction of the wall in the meantime?
Well, certainly that's going to come, out of Congress's. But right now, what they're saying is there's enough leftover appropriations that Trump can simply spend money for other things that have been allocated and not spend it on the wall. I'm not quite sure the legality of that, but I'm not quite sure legalities on anything matter much anymore.
New U.S. home sales down more than 10%. Is this because you've had a rotten winter or something else behind it?
Well, it's a combination of a bunch of things, actually. Homes are not affordable. The interest rates on homes have been rising. We've seen, both new home sales and existing home sales actually decline this month. Many months one is good and the other one is bad. They were uniformly bad this month. One certainly cannot blame the weather. At least I don't think so. Existing home sales, for example, are booked, at closing. So those are purchases made many months ago. So, unless we backtrack and decide that the weather was bad then. So I think it's just a combination of a whole bunch of factors, affordability, higher interest rates, perhaps concern over the economy, and a lot of it has to do with attitudes. Millennials we've got aging boomers, and millennials have, in many cases, moved back home with their parents. We've got a record number of that age demographic living with their parents, and they're just going to take over the home when their parents die. I think that's one of the things that's going on. And then home prices have risen so much. Say someone in Chicago wants to maybe move to Phoenix or wherever. They can't get as much for their home as they would have to spend, say, in Phoenix. We've got a lot of that kind of play going on. A whole combination of factors here that I think are all going to hit housing all at once. We kind of had like a giant thud in housing in December. Previously, when we've seen those, there have been snapbacks. We'll see. We'll have to wait and see. Need to look at about 3 months worth of data here to decide if the trend has really changed here or not.
President Trump has given his pre-approval for the Keystone XL pipeline to go ahead again. Is that good news for Canadian and U.S. energy producers?
Certainly good for the Canadian and U.S. energy producers. It's good for the people who own the pipeline. Obviously, they're going to collect money off of its use, and the tribes along the pipeline, the territorial land we're going through. Well, they're not exactly happy about this. The environmentalists are not happy about this. But it looks to me like this is pretty much a done deal, and it's going to go through. And some pretty bizarre pieces of legislation passed was submitted in North Dakota, allowing people who driving cars, if their path is blocked by people protesting, to simply run the people over. Legislation like that was actually submitted. I don't think it got to the stage where it was voted on, but that's an indication here of how extreme the sentiment is on both sides of this issue.
Nebraska still has to give its approval. Is it a pro-pipeline state?
This is pretty much a done deal here now, I believe.
We'll have more with Mish Shedlock right after the break.
Gem International is a new diamond explorer in the richest diamond producing country in Africa, located next to the fourth largest producing diamond mine in the world. International Spotlight is on an 1109 carat diamond recently discovered in Africa by a fellow Canadian junior with a proven operator and finance team. Gem International trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol GI. Visit us at gemdiamondmining.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Mike Shedlock. Mish, the Dow crossing the 20,000 point, is that of any real significance, or is it just...
Absolutely none at all. Amateurs focus on that. The general public that isn't even in stocks looks at it. We're talking about 30 stocks and a price-weighted index that makes no sense. Actually, if they would have put either Apple or Amazon into the Dow about 5 years ago, it would probably be at 40 or 50,000 now, because it's a price-weighted index. Certainly, if they would have put either of those in there back in after the tech crash in 2001, I think Amazon was at 6. Dow might even be at 100,000 now. That's how absurd this index is. It's not market cap weighted. Companies that are the 10th the size of Apple have 5 times as much weight. It all depends on when these companies went in the index and how much they rose after they went in. A price-based index like this absolutely makes no sense whatsoever.
Do you believe the U.S. dollar and the euro will be at par soon?
I don't know. What was interesting here was our trade rep with the EU came out yesterday and stated that he would short the euro in 2017 because the EU might not last. So, wow, I mean, that's a pretty amazing statement for someone who was supposed to be talking with these guys about issues. So, it really depends. I expect the Eurozone is going to break up. I think the EU is also likely to break up. It depends on how these things break up. If Germany leaves the Eurozone, for example, and goes back, say, to the Deutschmark simply because it's fed up, well, that might mean one thing for the euro. In other words, the euro might go down, the Deutschmark might go up. There are other scenarios in which case, perhaps if Germany adopted the euro and the stronger northern states adopted the euro and the other countries left, maybe the opposite would happen. So it just all depends on how and when and the timing of this thing breaks up and how messy it gets. I personally think it's going to be extremely messy, but I'm not sure in what order. And it's the order here that's going to matter.
The UK's highest court has said Parliament has to vote on Brexit, but it seems to me that's a done deal because it's a Conservative government. It's
a done deal because Labour has given up. We had all of this fear-mongering about how bad Brexit would be. The UK was going to collapse. Prices were going to soar. The UK is the strongest growing economy right now in all of Europe, GDP-wise. The collapse in the stock market did not happen at all. The collapse in the pound is likely to be favorable to the UK in any trade negotiations, and the UK came out and announced a package to cut corporate taxes that's going to make going to cause a lot of pain actually to the EU if they stick with their threats. So far, despite all the talk from the EU that they've got the upper hand in these negotiations, actually, the UK does. They can walk away at will. Even Labour has recognized that now, and the Labour leader has come out and said, we are going to do Brexit. They're trying to throw in these amendments, Jim, saying, putting conditions on it that we still need access to the single market and all this nonsense. All those amendments are going to be removed. First off, they can't happen. If Theresa May gets her wish of being out of jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice. That was one of her primary things. To remain in the single market, that was a condition in the EU. So all these amendments they're going to try and tack on, it's not going to happen. They passed a very, very simple, they submitted a very simple bill in the UK Parliament today that just simply gives May the authorization to proceed with Brexit. That's about all it says, and they wanted this thing simple as possible to so that as few amendments get attached to it. They're going to attach some amendments, but they're going to be voted down by the majority, and that's going to be that.
One of the indications of the animosity here, the EU has insisted that the Brexit talks be held in French.
Well, actually, Spain came out. One of the first rational things I've seen from the EU since this whole Brexit was voted on and approved by the voters. Spain came out yesterday and said, you know what? We don't want to punish the UK. We're not even going to insist on that Gibraltar be part of the process. We want a good trade relationship with the UK. That is exactly how it should be. It's not like Europe is. It's not like the UK is part of the continent connected everywhere else. They're not on the euro. They have no intention on being on the euro. Treating them like scum is not going to do anyone any good here. And the amusing thing is here, they're insisting, the EU's insisting that the UK abide by all of these rules. Well, guess what? They don't insist that China abide by those rules, the U.S. abide by those rules, that Japan abide by those rules. They're only insisting the U.K. abides by those rules. Really makes no sense.
Well, Britain always had its doubts about joining the European Union. They thought it was just going to be a trade deal, but it turned out to be political instead.
It was a very political deal, and there was increasing pressure every step of the way for the UK to do more funding, more defense, and even pressure and expectation, actually, that the UK would adopt the euro at some point. The pressure was just increasing in that direction. It was increasing in a direction that the UK citizens really did not want to go in, at least most of them, as we've seen in that vote. And, people voted for Brexit despite massive amounts of fear-mongering as to, all the pain that would befall the UK if they voted for this, and all of that's already been proven false.
Mish, just before we go, I haven't seen much about the Italian banking crisis. Has it disappeared?
No, it's not disappeared. They're still feuding over it. Italy's got a government crisis actually going on here right now. They've got another technocrat appointed. Matteo Renzi wants early elections. Beppe Grillo's five-star movement wants early elections. The Northern League wants early elections. But one thing that was holding up early elections after Renzi stepped down was the fact that the constitutional reforms that Renzi wanted passed did not pass. So the Italian Parliament was left with two sets of rules, one that governed the House and one that governed the Senate, or lower parliament and upper parliament, I think are the proper terms. So the king actually said, you know what, you have to resolve this issue first. The president said you have to resolve this issue before you can have these snap elections. It seems like that's been passed now. Whether or not he's going to go ahead and authorize these early elections now remains to be seen. It's his discretion to call, and he might just decide to wait till 2018. Very fluid situation here, but there's only one major political party, that's Matteo Renzi's, and that's the guy that just resigned, is in favor of staying on the euro. Everyone else in all the other major parties in Italy are anti-euro. So there is a very realistic chance here that we see a coalition of these other parties get together and say, we've had enough of the euro. Won't that be a hoot? And so there's a lot of very euro-destructive possibilities here coming up with these elections. Marine Le Pen has a chance to win in France, despite what people say, and Angela Merkel is not a 100% shoo-in in Germany, despite what people say. So, big year for politics coming up.
Mish, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Pleasure to be on. We'll catch you in a week.
My guest has been Mish Shedlock, editor of Mish's Global Economic Trend Analysis on MishTalk.com. You can find us on Twitter on Talk Digital Net. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Questions can be emailed to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.